There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Please be seated. The Secretary will read the order.
Debate on vote number 10, National Treasury, State Security.
I now call upon the Honourable the Minister of State Security to introduce the debate. The Honourable Minister.
Honorable Chairperson of the session, Honorable Frolic, Chairperson of the Ad hoc Committee on Intelligence, Honorable September, Honorable Ministers, Deputy Minister of State Security, Comrade Honorable Ellen Mlekane and other Deputy Ministers, the Deputy Chief Whip of the ANC, Honorable Doris Dlagute, the Chief Whip of the Ad hoc Committee, Honorable Comrade J.J. Skosane, Honorable Members of Parliament and National Council of Provinces, Honorable Members of the Ad hoc Committee on Intelligence, our Director General Ambassador Kujo, the SSA leadership and the membership, the Inspector General Advocate Ambassador Faith Hatebe, veterans of the intelligence services, the leadership of the ANC in Free State and Mpumalanga, the ANC Youth League in the province of Mpumalanga and the NTT, the Brother Alliance and the Progressive Youth Alliance, the Mahlobo and Mlekane families, distinguished guests, comrades and friends. Honorable Chair and members, 5 days ago we joined the rest of the world in celebrating the International Mandela Day. During the State of the Nation address, our President Zuma, implored the nation to set aside 67 minutes of their time to clean South Africa in memory of Madiba. This year's celebration is the first one since Madiba's departure on the 5th of December last year. In paying tribute to our beloved father of our nation, former Nelson Mandela, allow me to borrow from his book, Long Walk to Freedom. I quote, "I have walked that long road to freedom. I have tried not to falter. I've made missteps along the way, but I have discovered the secret that after climbing a great hill, one only finds that there are many more hills to climb. I've taken a moment here to rest, to steal a view of the glorious vista that surrounds me, to look back on the distance I have come. But I can rest only for a moment, for with freedom comes responsibility. I dare not linger, for my long walk has not yet ended." Close quote. The contributions that Madiba made for our country, the sacrifices he made for his belief, the selfless and tireless manner in which he fought so that you and I could stand here today, free, attest to the fact that our freedom was not free. We do consider ourselves very fortunate to have been led by such a great giant who strode the globe like a colossus. Madiba was one of the finest leaders of our movement, the ANC, and Africa has ever produced. Akekho onjengaye. Faced with the harsh realities with his generation of O.R. Tambo, Walter Sisulu and others, Madiba had to respond to a generational call that was eloquently captured by Frantz Fanon when he said, I quote, "Each generation must, out of the relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it or betray it." I close quote. This generation knew that in order to advance greatness in humanity, they had to make a choice, either to submit or fight. They chose to fight. a very serious choice because Madiba wanted to live a life of selflessness, a life that will change the lives of many who enjoyed a life under the repressive regime of apartheid and colonialism. He dedicated his entire life to serving his people in the quest for freedom, justice, and equality. Chair and members, as a country and its people, we have made significant strides on a journey that we started 20 years ago. We embark on a hard, long, and arduous but fulfilling journey to eradicate the legacy of apartheid and colonialism in pursuit of a truly united, non-racial, non-sexist, democratic, and prosperous society. This is a vision of a national democratic society as clearly outlined by our Freedom Charter, and it became the cornerstone and the bedrock of our constitutional democracy after 1994. Our father, his President Zuma, has eloquently said during his State of the Nation address, we have a good story to tell. We have managed to undergo a far-reaching phase of our democratic dispensation. During this phase, we have restored people's dignity in our country. We have ensured that the government is based on the will of the people, by the people, and many of the lives of many South Africans have improved. South Africa is indeed now a better place to live in than it was before 1994. Iningizimu Afrika ingcono kakhulu kunamuhla kunayizolo. We are, however, the first to admit that despite our achievements, a lot more still needs to be done. Indeed, ours is a long journey towards the realization of a kind of a society we all envisage in our founding documents. We have come a long way in stabilizing the domestic security situation in our country, in creating enabling conditions for our democracy to flourish. We have created space for citizens to exercise their constitutional right. At the same time, we have also contributed significantly to the security of our region and the continent as large and the globe in particular. We have brought to an end to political violence, which in the 80s and the early 90s has caused misery amongst many families. We have eliminated urban terrorism, brought right-wing extremism under control, and we have made a lot of contribution to the security of major events in our country, whether it's the World Cup and all these other events we have held as a country. More importantly, in terms of our work, we have introduced legislation that ensures that our intelligence tradecraft is now subjected to the rule of law and is subjected to constitutionalism other than before 1994. In addition, we have ensured that our legislature has introduced legislation of oversight on the work of that this department does so that you can avoid any exploitation. Therefore, as we stand today, we have been in a process to conclude our restructuring. We have integrated all the intelligence services now to what is known as the Department of State Security Agents. We are saying as a department, we are going to build on the work that we have done and the foundation we have laid over the last 20 years. Over this period, there have been challenges. We are not oblivious on the complexity of the work and the task at hand, but we are committed in delivering on the vision we have set ourselves. The ANC recently, again, has been given an overwhelming mandate by our people to continue with the good story, to make bold decisions for socio-economic transformation as part of implementing our national democratic revolutions. Our work as a department is premised on the mandate given through the manifesto, but equally through the National Development Plan. We have then been in a position to convert this into a program of action of the government for this fifth administration. Ours is to contribute to the medium-term strategic objectives, outcome number 3 and outcome number 11. In outcome 3, we all say all people in South Africa are and they feel safe, and outcome 11, we will want to create a better South Africa, contribute to a better and a safer Africa in a better world. In our NDP, we have set a vision for the work we do as a security cluster, that people living in South Africa must be able to feel safe at home, they must be safe at schools, at work, they must enjoy community life free of fear. Women and girl children must be able to walk freely in our street. Children must be able to play safely outside. On anti-corruption, we are saying that the agencies that are fighting corruption in our country, by 2030, they must be fully resourced and capacitated, and corruption should have been reduced significantly. We will be able then to contribute to those outcomes by ensuring effective criminal justice system. We will have to manage South Africa's borders in totality, secure them. We must be able to secure the cyberspace. We must ensure domestic stability, but we must reduce corruption both in the private and the public sector. We are going to contribute to ensure that our interests as a country, they are advanced. There is peace in our region, in our continent. We are going to ensure that we contribute in supporting that Africa's economy is integrated. We are going also to ensure that through our work, we support the work we do on South-to-South cooperation, including the friends in the North. Last year, in December, our cabinet approved the National Security Strategy for South Africa, which places emphasis on the issues of our territorial integrity, asserting the authority of the state. For us to discharge our mandate, we have begun a process of improving the capacity of intelligence services in the country. We do this because we have an appreciation of the role of intelligence in securing the state, its sovereignty, its people, its infrastructure, and resources. We want to make the intelligence services to be more relevant, more effective, and robust to deal with all the evolving nature of threats, both in our country and globally. We are going to improve the coordination, our operations. We are going to exchange information, but more importantly, we'll promote innovation, research, and development in our operations. We are at the stage now, Honorable Chair, where we are now going to introduce and review regulations under our 3 pieces of legislation that were amended by Parliament last year through our General Intelligence Laws and Amendment Act, the process that will make us to be relevant in terms of the 21st century challenges. When this process in the department is complete, we will then allow a process working with yourselves to start the public consultations. This we do because the threats we have, they've become so complex. It now has forced us to adopt a different posture to human, financial, and material resources. Our department is also going to prioritize the attraction of new skills in the new areas of threat to enable us to deliver on our priorities for the next 5 years, while we are going to be paying more attention in reskilling of the existing personnel in the department so that they are better equipped and to deal with the emerging trends that we face as a country, as a continent, and the world. In giving effect to that, we are going to also be paying a greater attention as a department to the instability that we see and understand its dynamics. We are going to have a concerted effort to combat corruption, organized crime, illegal immigration, illicit economic activities, while fostering conditions to advancement of energy, food, water, environmental security. As we have said, these are our priorities as a country. Honorable Chair, we must also emphasize that national security is not only about securing the state, but it is also about creating the proper conditions for nation building, the development of a national identity, common patriotism, and the development of our country to become prosperous and a thriving democracy. We are very cognizant of the fact that the South Africa's security is intrinsically linked to the security of our region, our continent, and the globe. We are going to strengthen our early warning system as a country so that we can be able to respond adequately to all those international and domestic forms of terrorism and extremism, addressing cyber attacks, securing our cyberspace, and managing our national borders very importantly. While we talk about our borders, our concerns are because crimes like drug trafficking, human smuggling, rhino poaching, and identity and travel document fraud can be linked to cross-border movement of people and goods. We will then strengthen our intervention through close coordination with our partners to secure our aviation space, the maritime, and the land border environments. That will be our task. We are confronting and will put more emphasis to root out corruption, because corruption has a negative impact on the economy and it erodes the confidence people have on our state. To pursue our vision, we want to actually empower citizens to hold public and private officials to account. Leaders must have high ethical standards. We need to have a comprehensive and resilient anti-corruption system. The mandate that we are going to do these things, some of the actions, but not limited to. We must accelerate our national vetting strategy in terms of implementation, improve the perception of South Africans in terms of our international standing, but we must also deal with violent protest. That threatens both domestic stability and the authority of the state. People have a right to protest, but they have no right to disrupt others. It's a hard-earned right, and it can't be undermined by those who are using it for other purposes. We'll try to find lasting solutions to curb violent industrial actions and violence within the transport sector. We'll help our colleagues there with a primary focus to try to stabilize the mining sector and the transport sector and other sectors that, like the environmental sector, that is also under attack in terms of poaching. But we'll actually put more effort in the issues of illicit mining that has become so complex, multifaceted, so that as a state we can respond. We will also work with our security cluster to deal with this simmering violence that is perpetrated against foreign nationals through our existing structures, so that South Africa become a better place. Organized crime, it has changed its form, became violent, and we are going to become radical, very vigilant, to deal with those sophistication that they impose now, including the diversification in terms of operation. Our concern is that if these things are not attended to, they then resolve into illicit economy that continues to pose a threat to our country. We note good progress has been made in the areas of combating trade and illicit tobacco and cigarettes, but now our focus must be on illicit financial flows that are happening in our country and continent, where billions of rands are lost in the process. Working with the financial intelligence services and the reports we are receiving, as a country at this stage, we are losing closely to 1 billion per annum through this particular work. Therefore, this department is going to strengthen its economic intelligence, because that's the next threat we face. Working with our partners on international cooperation, trade, peace, and security, we remain steadfast in our conviction that the prosperity and advancement of South Africa is inextricably linked to that of our continent. Therefore, this department will continue to play an important role by providing dynamic, reliable, and timeless intelligence to advance our national security and interest. We know, as we stand here today, there are problems in Mali, CAR, Nigeria, Libya, Egypt, and all over the world. but we want to be part of that particular solution through the right structures that this government is participating in. At the national level, Honorable Chair and members, as I have said earlier on, we have prioritized cybersecurity space. It must be secured. At a national level, I've indicated that we are losing a lot of money, close to R1 billion, and we cannot fold our arms and say no. Example, you can't win a competition when you have not entered one. Someone says you have won R1 million. How do you respond to that? How do you win a competition that you have not done that? We are going to strengthen our cooperation in this space, in the region, with the AU, BRICS partners, and the other partners that we need to work with. We are putting a coherent, seamless information regulatory framework, which is going to be aligned to national and international standard. Therefore, through this, we will create a domain of information that will be given the necessary information to regulate the space. During this administration, we have taken a decision. We are going to go big bang, and we need your support to improve our technological capability as a department, but more importantly, professionalize the intelligence services. We have undertaken to finalize the benchmarking exercise to review the remuneration framework for the staff in the department so that we can be able to recruit and retrain the caliber of best professionals in the service through our recruitment. We are also very pleased to know that we are now giving impetus to the work of the Veterans Association. Now it is at an advanced stage. The veterans of our family will now be utilized by the department in the areas like training, coaching, and mentoring, because that's an important work. We are going to strengthen our internal capacity. We are going to engage with institutions of education to secure the future of our intelligence. We want to make intelligence services a career of choice for many young South Africans. We don't only listen to people, we need engineers, financial experts, and others. We are going to also to ensure that there is internal training and development will be prioritized. Members of our agents will be supported with all the necessary resources to discharge their responsibility, and this leadership of myself and the Deputy Minister and the DG will ensure that we improve the organizational culture of our department. Good performance will be recognized in the department. In the same vein, there will be consequences for poor performance and ill discipline. In the spirit of celebrating of our 20 years of freedom and democracy, allow me, Chair, to pay tribute to His Excellency President Zuma and the entire current and past members of our community who have made countless sacrifices to enable us to enjoy the fruits of their labor in a stable, peaceful, and democratic South Africa. Our responsibility is to ensure that we carry this proud tradition forward through the provision of relevant, timely, and reliable intelligence, as well as building sustainable organizational capacity to secure many more generations to come. As a department, we are equal to the task. We are working with our government partners and the people of this country to protect the integrity, the authority of our state, to collaborate our collective efforts in delivering of the objectives of the ANC manifesto, the National Development Plan, and ensure that South Africa remains a nation at work for the protection and advancement of its most prized assets, her people. Let me take this opportunity to thank our President and the ANC leadership for the trust they have bestowed upon me and the Deputy Minister to lead this department. The ad hoc committee that sat yesterday and even today to do this important task, the support I received from my Deputy Minister, Comrade Mlekane, the support I have received from my predecessor, Minister Comrade Twele, for the handover and induction, my Director General, Ambassador Sonto Kujo, the two directors, Ntombela and Siswana, and the NICOC coordinator, Mr. Lomo, the Inspector General, Ambassador Faith Hatebe, and the entire leadership of SSA and members. Lastly, my family, my dad, Inkosi Mahlobo Noma wam, my lovely wife, and my brothers and sisters, the ANC in Mpumalanga, ANC in Free State, and the ANC all over the country, the entity of the Youth League, the broader alliance, for their continued support and guidance. We will remain resolute, unflinching, in the face of opposition, and focus on achieving our goals we have set as government to advance our beautiful country, a country that is full of possibilities. We want to invite all South Africans and implore them to be part of national effort to secure the security of our country, her integrity, her people, our infrastructure and resources. Nawe uliphoyisa, ngeke sakwazi ukugada abantu abangaphezulu kwa 53 million. I humbly submit this budget for the Department of State Security for your consideration and approval. Together, we move South Africa forward. God bless South Africa, her sons and daughters. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The next speaker is the Honourable September.
Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Minister and Deputy Minister of State Security, Honourable Members, the Inspector General, Faith Radebe, the entire family of the State Security here today, all the guests that we are having here today. Honourable Chairperson, allow me to firstly congratulate the Minister and Deputy Minister for an important task that has been bestowed upon them, in that they have been given the task to make sure that South Africa moves forward, and South Africa moves forward in a safe and in a secured manner. I rise in support of this budget vote on behalf of the African National Congress. Chairperson, in his State of the Nation address last month, on the opening of this fifth parliament, President Jacob Zuma set the country on a continuous 5-year course where he stated, and I quote, "This program of action that he tabled before the parliament was aimed at making sure that South Africa is a better place for all." He continued to say that the National Development Plan and the Presidency's 20-year review highlighted that indeed we need to deal with the triple challenges of poverty, inequality, and unemployment, because that continued to affect the lives of the people of South Africa. As we enter the second phase of our transition from apartheid to a national democratic society, we have to embark on a radical socio-economic transformation to push back the triple challenges that he referred to. In order to do that, he continued to say that what we have to do as a country is to meet with the social partners so that we deliberate on things, amongst others, the wage inequality that is still in the country, that what we need to do on our side as a government, we will investigate the possibility of making sure that we bring stability in relation to bringing in a national minimum wage as one of the key mechanisms to reduce the income inequality, and that we continue to make sure that we improve the living conditions of the mine workers in South Africa, and therefore make sure that we monitor the compliance that we should have in the mining charter targets that relates to improving the living conditions of workers. He continued to say that what we need to do in this 5 years is to make sure that the low levels of investments must be a key constraint, that is a key constraint to this economic growth must be tackled, and therefore a determination should be there to work with the private sector to remove those obstacles that we have in investments. Chairperson, he also decisively informed this country that what we need to have is to deal with the energy constraints so that we create a conducive environment for growth and so make sure that we bring in a radical transformation in this country through the energy sector, especially amongst others, and bring in a range of different things there. And in order to do that, importantly, he said that we will be spending 847 billion rand on the infrastructure, on several projects that will be started. This, in our view, sets the parameter in the ANC government, making sure that we bring stability, that we bring security to this country by dealing with the most important fundamental issues that will set a country forward in this instance. And therefore, it is a known fact that many people love this country. They continue to visit this country. And what we need to make sure is that we delve this down to the level of local government to make sure that our people continue to have a pleasant local government, he stated. As the ANC, we see this program as a stabilization of the country. It provides the necessary security state that we should have. Chairperson, as I close the quote of what President Zuma said, maybe we should be reminded what we set out for ourselves as an ANC when we spoke about, when we knew that in South Africa that the ANC was going to be the government of the day. We set out in our Ready to Government what we think we should have as an approach to intelligence in this country. And we think after 20 years in this country, it remains relevant that the ANC believes that the role of the national intelligence shall be, of course, to gather and collate, of course, to evaluate information that pertains to the security of the state and its citizenry, and therefore its role of the intelligence service shall be to act always in the interest of the country as a whole. The ANC is committed to the principles which underpin such an approach, a continuous approach that we have started. And therefore, in this approach to security in a democratic South Africa, we agree, shall be and should be committed to resolving, as part of this approach to intelligence, to resolve internal and external conflict primarily through non-violent means. This message needs to go to Palestine and Israel too. We agree as an ANC that the approach to intelligence should be that national security and personal security shall be sought primarily through efforts to meet the social, the political, economic, and cultural needs of our people. South Africa shall pursue peaceful and cooperative relations with its neighboring states, as you have articulated, Honorable Minister. We also believed in Ready to Govern that the security institutions shall be bound by the principle of civil supremacy and subject to public scrutiny and open debate. You have also alluded to that, Honorable Minister, and we of course support that as the ANC, and that the security institutions shall reflect the national and gender composition of South African society. In this regard, a program of affirmative action must continue in your department. I look around to see whether indeed you have started to achieve that. And the answer is no. The security institutions shall be accountable and answerable to the public through a democratically elected parliament. This parliament stands out in the world, honorable members, as having achieved the kind of legislation that we have put together to make you answerable. Nowhere else in the world do we allow the kind of legislation that we do have, and for that we should be applauded as the African National Congress for having to achieve what we said. There needs to be accountability and answerable to a democratically elected parliament. And therefore, the security institutions shall respect human rights, it must respect non-racialism and democracy, and act in a non-discriminatory manner towards the citizenry. We agree as the ANC when we said in Ready to Government that the security institutions shall be politically non-partisan, and that the role of the security forces shall not be absurd by private security companies. The private security industry must be regulated with a view to ensure that the industry performs its functions in a manner that is consistent with democracy. And so we continue to say that the principles of intelligence must continue to be an intelligence agency that respects the rights of South Africans when they engage in lawful political activity, and above all, make sure that the regulation by the relevant legislation, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution of South Africa, and an appropriate code of conduct must prevail. The ANC, Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, believes that the national and the regional security should not be restricted to military, police, and intelligence matters, but as having political, economic, but I agree with you, Honorable Minister, that we include the environmental dimensions here too also. And therefore, what we have put together in answering the ANC's quest of making sure that we have this approach to intelligence, we applaud the fact that in the National Development Plan, South Africa and the ANC-led government has risen to that call by making sure that we have a long-term strategic plan, and of course that the NDP, we must be reminded, serves 4 broad objectives to create that stable democratic South Africa. It makes sure that there is an overarching goal for what we want to achieve by 2030 and not something for tomorrow only, that we build consensus on the key obstacles to achieve these goals and what needs to be done to overcome these obstacles, providing a shared long-term strategic framework within which more detailed planning can take place in order to advance the long-term goals set out in the National Development Plan. We are reminded that the NDP says that between now and 2030, we need to move towards a state that is more capable, more professional, and more responsive to the needs of its citizens, and therefore we support your efforts, Honourable Minister, that we have to make sure that we professionalize this sector too. The NDP reminds us that progress needs to be in those areas rapidly where the state capacity is at its weakness, so that this can eliminate poverty and inequality in South Africa. What better way that has been put together to start the National Development Plan in South Africa through the ANC's manifesto that we have put to the country, of which the people have elected us to come to this parliament. We have promised our people that in our manifesto, in order for us to continue to build a safe and secure state, that we must build an inclusive economy that can create jobs, that we transform our rural areas, ensure that decent living conditions and sustainable human settlements should be there, that we improve and expand education and training and ensure quality of healthcare for all, expand comprehensive social security, and make sure that we fight crime and corruption, and therefore the efforts that are being made in this regard that your own department is going to put in place, Minister, is extremely important to make sure that we continue to deal with corruption in this country. We also said that we must make sure that we build a united nation and promote social cohesion in this country. Social cohesion is an important element to stability and security in this country, and therefore an important element to make sure that we continue to build this, all of us in the country. We have said that what we must make sure is that underdevelopment, poverty, the lack of democratic participation, and the abuse of human rights continues to be regarded as grave threats to the security of our people, since they invariably give rise to the conflict between individuals, between communities and countries, and they threaten the security of the state indeed. Chairperson and honourable members, as the ANC, our view is that we must continue to cling to those values that inspired by our founding mothers, our founding fathers of this nation, Nelson Mandela, Oliver Tambo, Ruth First, and many of our leaders, that the lack of these values that they have given to us, pushed aside by other less idealistic interests, is the real threat to society. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Stibbe.
Honourable Chair, Honourable Minister, Deputy Minister, Honourable members, members of the intelligence community, and members of the public. Finding the right balance between secrecy and constitutional principles and the rule of law is a major challenge in our intelligence department. While South Africa has implemented a model system on paper, in practice, the implementation of our system has fallen short in many aspects. In Canada, the MacDonald Commission argued that security must not be regarded as more important than democracy, for the fundamental purpose of security is the preservation of our democratic system. It is thus important for us to continually reassess our role as parliamentarians in ensuring that there is as much transparency and accountability as possible over our intelligence services. Intelligence agencies not only protect but can also threaten democracy. The threat may come from invasion of privacy by information gathering and surveillance, by direct attempts to manipulate the political process, or by control of information, infiltration of political movements, pressure groups and trade unions. While it is widely accepted that official communication on operations can only be transparent to a limited extent to ensure that the relevant operations, sources and assets are not compromised within the modified system of accountability, the need for rigorous control and oversight is greater, not less. International best practices for parliamentary oversight is that of a closed committee, provided that such a committee establish a reputation for independence and thoroughness. This need not affect its legitimacy. However, despite the best intention of the architects of our system and strong powers given to it in legislation, the Joint Standing Committee of Intelligence has not achieved such a level of legitimacy. International best practices is designing oversight mechanism for intelligence services, focus on the needs to establish mechanism to prevent political abuse while providing effective governance of the agencies, upholding the rule of law and ensuring the proportionate use of exceptional powers in order to protect human rights. Further investigative techniques should be proportionate to the security threat under investigation and weighted against the possible damage to civil liberties and democratic structures. Less intrusive alternatives should be used wherever possible, and control of discretion should be layered so that the greater the invasion of privacy, the higher the level of necessary authorization. In democracy, no area of state activity should be a no-go zone for the legislature, including security sectors. Subject to the Constitution, parliamentary involvement gives legitimacy and direct democratic accountability. It can help to ensure that the security organizations are serving the state as a whole and protecting the Constitution rather than narrower political and sectional interests. International commentators have argued that while the institution of oversight and accountability for the intelligence function in South Africa would appear to be strong on the surface, upon further examination, these can be found to be weak and problematic at best. The problem has to some degree be the politicization of the intelligence process and the development of parallel intelligence structures given the historical association of the intelligence services. However, the other problem has been the lack of reporting of the JSCI and indeed the failure of the committee to make use of all powers given to it by law. Since the formation of the JSCI and the enactment of the Intelligence Service Oversight Act, Act 40 of 1994, the annual reports of the committee has always been late, in clear breach of the law. It was only at the very end of the Fourth Parliament in March 2014 that the committee finally tabled its annual reports for the periods 2010 and 11 and 2011-12, with the most recent annual report still being under consideration. This is unacceptable given the legislative provision on annual reporting of the committees. However, not only are these reports tabled late, but they are never subject to the debate in the House, while it is crucial to ensure that security is protected in the process of parliamentary oversight of the intelligence services. Internationally, it has widely become accepted that higher levels of public debate on certain aspects of the intelligence services are necessary for strong democratic oversight to prevail. Indeed, in the UK, it has now become accepted that parliamentary questions in the House which mention intelligence services but which do not seek information about individuals or operations are acceptable. Why then is it not common practice in this House to debate the annual reports of the JSCI since they contain declassified information? Also, given the powers of the committee to provide special reports to the House in addition to annual reports, why have we only had one such report in the Fourth Parliament? And this special report on the Public Works Task Team report, which was supposedly classified and subsequently released to the public, was a complete whitewash. This one special report served to provide that South Africa's legislative framework for intelligence oversight is indeed strong in theory but weak in practice. The report by the JSCI served only to support the findings of the Department of Public Works. It failed to provide critical analysis, and when viewed against the Public Protector's report into the matter, has been shown as a political tool to protect the President and not an oversight mechanism intended by legislation to uphold the rule of law and democratic principles. Given the importance of strengthening the oversight of the intelligence services and the need to ensure that the agency upholds our constitutional democracy, the Democratic Alliance intends to introduce a private members' bill in the Fifth Parliament to attempt to provide more safeguards against delays and abuse within the Oversight Act, and to provide greater alignment between our system and international best practices. This will include ensuring that the various legislative provisions, such as the PFMA and the Oversight Act, which impact on the annual reporting of the committee, are aligned, to prevent unnecessary delays and to create stricter time limits of the declassification of information by the executive. Changes will also consider the legal requirement for the executive to state in general what is omitted from any published report and the reason for the omission. This will enable political scrutiny of such decisions to take place through the normal parliamentary process. Is South Africa to be held to higher standards than other countries? I think yes, if for no other reason than that the architects of the South Africa's post-94 intelligence dispensation stated that they would hold themselves to far higher standards than not only the system that they look to replace, but also international standards for the field. Currently, it will be difficult to grade South Africa in terms of the strength of its accountability and oversight mechanism for intelligence. The intelligence service are barely independent from the executive. Indeed, in some senses, they could be seen as slaves to the executive's policies and interests. And indeed, the very mechanism created to provide accountability, the JSCI, has itself become subject to such control. For the future of democratic control over our intelligence services, urgent change is required. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Ponchane.
Mhlonishwa sihlalo, mhlonishwa ungqongqoshe nesekela kaNgqongqoshe nabahlonishwa abakhona. With the advent of democracy in 1994, the principle of parliamentary supremacy was replaced by the principle of constitutional supremacy. This was a significant transformation because, according to the principle of parliamentary supremacy, no court of law could pronounce on the laws passed by Parliament. More than anything, the principle of constitutional supremacy ushered in the notions and tenets of accountability for both Parliament and the organs of state. Section 2 of the Constitution states, I quote, "This Constitution is the supreme law of the Republic. Law or conduct inconsistent with it is invalid, and the obligations imposed by it must be fulfilled," end quote. The Constitution not only imposes accountability, but also responsibilities and obligations. One of these obligations is enshrined in the Bill of Rights. Section 12, subsection 1C of the Constitution says, everyone has the right to freedom and security of the person, which includes the right to be free from all forms of violence from either public or private sources. End quote. The state, through its representative government, has an obligation, therefore, to make the Constitution a living document by ensuring, amongst other things, that its requirements and obligations are fulfilled. Again, Honorable Chairperson, the preamble to the Constitution ends with the words, quote, "May God protect our people," end quote. We are, however, familiar with the adage which says, God help those who help themselves. And in isiZulu we say, idlozi liyabhekelwa. It is important that the state, through its organs such as the Department of State Security, must have the capability of detecting potential threats to the freedoms and welfare of the state and its people. One of these factors which would lend this capability to the Department of State Security is the budgetary allocation. Hence, the IFP supports this budget. Bare voorsitter, baie dankie.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable the Deputy Minister of State Security.
The Chairperson of the session, Chairperson of the Ad Hoc Committee of Intelligence, Honourable Minister of State Security Agency, Ministers and Deputy Ministers here present, Deputy Chief Whip of the ANC, the Chief Whip of the Ad Hoc Committee on Intelligence, Honourable Members of Parliament and National Council of Provinces, intelligence veterans, ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends. In the past 20 years, South Africa has taken its rightful place as an independent sovereign state in the family of nations and is a respected and active member of the international community. It has repositioned itself in the region, in the African continent and the world, and has the ability to further its own national interests and those of the continent. As a country, we continue to be an influential and leading member of the international community, and we strive to be a contributor to the reform of systems of global governance to advance South Africa's national interests. Paramount to that quest is for us to have peace and security, to have sustainable development, to have democracy, to have rule of law, human rights for a prosperous region, Africa, as well as a fair and just world. Chairperson, we have peace and stability in our country. Threats to our sovereign integrity have become more complex, emanating from the changing global environment. The President of our country, His Excellency President Jacob Zuma, aptly captured the global environment in his address to the intelligence community in 2012 when he said, I quote, "The radical transformation occurring globally has narrowed the distinction between foreign and domestic threats. World borders are now softer than ever. Whether it is transnational crime, terrorism, or the global political situation, the international security situation requires all states to remain vigilant and to cooperate in protecting respective national security interests and their citizens," close quote. Outcome 11 in the medium-term strategic framework requires us to create a better South Africa and contribute to a better and safer Africa in a better world. Therefore, our role as state security is to understand and influence the external environment as it impacts on our ability to deliver on our mandate. Our interaction in the African continent, among others, has to be the achievement of the developed and economically integrated Africa as enshrined in the African Union's Vision 2063. The African Union Assembly of the African Heads of State and Government has declared 2014 as the year of agriculture and food security in Africa. Through this declaration, the AU is placing emphasis on human security and encourages its member states to take active steps to increase food security, reduce poverty, promote economic growth, and create wealth through agricultural development and innovation. At the heart of the AU declaration is to address the structural paradox on the continent, where robust economic growth is occurring in parallel with declining per capita food production. The State Security Agency will support the efforts of our government towards the realization of human security, as it will bring about a more peaceful, secure, and stable Africa. Outcome 3 in the medium-term strategic framework requires us to ensure that all South Africans are and feel safe. This outcome has to be understood in the context of what the Constitution also requires us further to deliver. That is that South Africans as individuals and as a nation should live as equals in peace and harmony and are free from fear and want. It is in response, Chairperson, to this that the 5th ANC administration has identified radical economic transformation as a strategic objective in this second phase of democratic transition. This is informed by the ANC manifesto and the National Development Plan, as well as our program of action. The overwhelming show of confidence by our people in the national and provincial elections held in May this year imposes the responsibility and obligation on this administration to accelerate the implementation of radical socio-economic transformation agenda without fear or favor. In his State of the Nation address in May this year, the President emphasized, I quote, "The economy takes center stage in the program of action of this 5th administration. It remains our strong belief that the most effective weapon against poverty is the creation of decent work, and that creating work requires faster economic growth," I close quote. In this respect, the SSAA will strengthen partnerships and cooperation with its partners in the justice, crime prevention, security cluster, as well as the international cooperation, trade, and security clusters. We'll also have partnerships with broader government, the private sector, and civil society to ensure that our efforts in realizing our economic goals are achieved without hindrance. Chairperson, I am pleased with the interaction the ministry had with the Ad Hoc Committee on Intelligence, where the department presented its 2014 to 2019 strategic plan. They raised concerns and identified areas of focus, all of which we will devote our attention to. We will continue to devote our energies in improving on governance, accountability, and compliance in the State Security Agency. Coupled with this is our planned policy initiatives that include a comprehensive review of the intelligence framework, commencing with a review of the white paper on intelligence and the implementation of national security strategy. Chairperson, there should be no discomfort about the implementation of our national security strategy, as that does not mean that we are about setting up a security state. Rather, it is about creating proper conditions for nation building, the development of a national identity and common patriotism, as well as the development of our country to become prosperous and a thriving democracy. By its very nature, intelligence work uses covert means and may appear to outsiders that it does not add value to government objectives. The contrary is true. Our reason for existence is to deliver timeless, topical, accurate policy-relevant information that informs, focuses, and advises on dangers, opportunities, and critical developments. As State Security Agency, we shall continue to raise awareness amongst our people to demystify the nature of our work, as it is the backbone of a stable government. In advancing our task of creating an environment in which all South Africans are and feel safe, we have heeded the President's call to root out corruption and to address the weaknesses that undermine the authority of the state, as well as the integrity of government's procurement systems. Through the JCPS cluster, we will contribute to the institutionalization of a multidisciplinary anti-corruption regime that will provide for more severe penalties as a deterrent against the commission of such offenses in both the public and the private sector. In the State Security Agency, we are committed to positioning ourselves as an institution that carries out its mandate free of undue influence, being exemplary in our governance and inculcating a culture of zero tolerance for corruption in our ranks. In recent months, Chairperson, we have observed developments in the Platinum Belt. The termination of the strike in the Platinum Belt is welcomed. One of the key lessons that should be learned or drawn from the events in the Platinum Belt is that social partners, business, labor must broaden the channels of communication and pursue a broad national compact to overcome the prevailing structural impediments to a conducive employment environment in the mining sector. Our mandate requires that we stay ahead of changes within our environment insofar as it relates to security and our tradecraft. This requires us to evaluate our core skills, competencies, and enhance our professionalism. To this end, we will prioritize the development of human resources to create a work environment that is conducive to excellence, where serving members and new recruits are encouraged to develop to their full potential and flourish. We will pay special focus on the recruitment of talented, patriotic youth through our cadet program and utilize our veterans to impart the skills and knowledge of our tradecraft to these new recruits. This will be a deliberate effort to respond to government's call to create sustainable work opportunities for our people, in particular the youth. The values that we will inculcate among the new recruits and our ranks in general will be based on the words from one of our predecessors, notably the late Minister John Tlantla of Intelligence, when he said, I quote, "Now more than ever, we must demand more from ourselves and build with pride a culture within the intelligence services that holds high the goals of incorruptibility, credibility, integrity, and maximum effectiveness. We must accept nothing less." Close quote. Chairperson, I take this opportunity to express our gratitude to the intelligence veterans community for their continued readiness to support us in responding to our call whenever we need extra capacity. They remain a valuable asset to our nation. In conclusion, I dedicate this speech to women, stalwarts of our glorious movement, that women that I regard as gallant heroines, women who inspired me in my political growth and sharpening of the intelligence tradecraft. They are Siaparankwe, Mayor Ruth Mumpati, the late Mayor Kate Mulale, the late Mayor Florence Muposho, the late Sis Noma Vanchangase, and the late Sis Maud Manyosi. I will forever be indebted to them for their wisdom and encouragement. I concur, Chairperson, with all the issues that Minister David Mahlobo raised in his speech, and I stand ready to support him in advancing the goals of this ANC 5th administration. I am grateful for all the support I received from the Chairperson of the Ad Hoc Committee on Intelligence, Honorable Connie September, the Director General, Ambassador Sonto Kujo, and her management Group, and the Inspector General of Intelligence, Ambassador Faith Hadebe. Lastly, I thank most heartily the Mahlobo and Molekane family who are present at this budget vote, especially my son Tumi.
Honorable Deputy Minister, your time is now
I
expired.
request that the House adopt the vote of State Security Agency.
The next speaker is the Honorable Dlakude.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Ministers, Deputy Ministers, Honorable Members, the State Security family, our guests present in this House. I want to begin my address by contextualizing the critical imperatives of state intelligence and refocusing the attention of this House to a terrorist attack that took place in Kenya a few months ago. It is the backdrop of this incident in question that the intelligence trajectory of this nation leaves us with a country-specific reflection about the crucial imperatives of the intelligence machinery in Africa and South African context. On the 21st of September 2013, unidentified gunmen attacked the upmarket Westgate shopping mall in Nairobi, Kenya. The attack, which lasted until the 24th of September, resulted in at least 67 deaths, including four of the attackers. In this attack, over 175 people were reportedly wounded in this mass shooting, with all gunmen reported killed. The Islamist group Al-Shabaab claimed responsibility for the incident, which is characterized as retribution for the Kenyan militarist deployment in Somalia. Honorable Chairperson, this hateful attack on the innocent people in Kenya is just one incident in time which demonstrates how critical stability and national security is for any government and society in the world. This attack on the Kenyan people reissued a well-understood emergency alert across the global spectrum about the imperatives and suppressing threats to peace and security as identified by intelligence reports. In that moment, we understood yet again that a failure to effectively utilize intelligence mechanism has the ability to make any country vulnerable, which is a costly consequences for any nation. Honorable Chairperson, the task of maintaining safety and security is therefore a critical matter upon which the success of all our government's programs hinge. It is for this reason that the ANC government is deeply committed and unrelenting in our resolve to improving conditions of safety and security for the benefit of our people. The state security is responsible for providing government with intelligence on domestic, foreign, and potential threats to national stability, the constitutional order, and the safety and well-being of its people. This enables government to implement and improve policies to deal with potential threats and to better understand existing threats. State intelligence mechanisms also allow government to take defensive action in order to maintain peace and stability in the country. In this regard, crime intelligence is a critical component that assists the South African police services to achieve this end. As the principal law enforcement body, the South African Police Services is responsible for preventing, combating, and investigating crime in order to maintain public order, to protect and secure the inhabitants of the country and their property, and to uphold and enforce law. Many positive spin-offs are derived from the crime intelligence reports, which positively contribute towards ensuring that our people reside in a peaceful environment, free of fear and intimidation. Some of these spin-offs include the activated surge of foreign direct investment, peace, stability, and national security. There is also a tremendous economic benefit that is activated. This economic advantage also enables us to open up the economy so as to create more jobs for our people. In the context of growing democracies such as ours, these intelligence imperatives are germane in advancing the policy and developmental agenda of our country. Honorable Chairperson, despite our understanding of the context within which we function as a nation, which has to be vigilant in detecting and suppressing security threats, we witnessed a deep level of mistrust when we dealt with the Protection of State Information Bill, in which some of honorable members present in this House called it a secrecy bill. I don't understand when it comes to this, that how could a South African person want to strip our government naked? In the South African context, issues of mistrust originate from the fact that the apartheid exploited the intelligence state apparatus in order to pursue an agenda of oppressing and systematic genocide against our people. Under the apartheid regime, the landscape of intelligence and its underlying facets of surveillance and monitoring merely functioned for the exclusively purpose of carrying out attacks and suppressing those who were opposing them. This mistrust to the reform of the state intelligence machinery is also a phenomenon of both developed and emerging democracies. A study conducted by the Routledge, Taylor, and Francis Group on this issue of intelligence reform in developing democracies such as Brazil and Romania sheds light on this matter. The finding on this study revealed that effort to reform intelligence in newer democracies is an extremely challenging task. This is due to the fact that all democracies, both new and long established, are based on the accountability. They require transparency, including working with the rule of law and respecting human rights, checks and balances, and defined mandates. In addition, intelligence at some level requires secrecy to the effective, which negates to some degree both accountability and transparency. In the context of the security democracy, all democracies must grapple as best as they can with balancing transparency and secrecy. This contextual background affirms the point that developing democracies have to deal with the effects of mistrust created by the oppressive regimes which previously governed in such countries. It is therefore imperative to begin dealing with issues of mistrust through a manner that will allow our nation to appreciate the fundamental role of intelligence mechanism for the stability of our country. Honorable Chairperson, during this poignant era of transition in our country, we must emphatically reiterate that the National Development Plan is the blueprint for development and achieving radical economic growth. In an overview by the World Bank on South Africa, some key observations were posited as key drivers for attaining far-reaching results. This overview recognized the priorities identified by the NDP for raising employment through faster economic growth, improving the quality of education, skills development, and innovation, and building the capacity of the state to play a developmental and transformative role. It further states that these priorities are interlinked with progress in one area while supporting advances in another. It further concluded by reiterating that sustainable increase in employment will require a faster growing economy and removal of structural impediments such as poor education quality and special settlements pattern that exclude the majority. Honorable Chairperson, the challenge of timeless service delivery protest is an issue of great concern that we cannot allow to fester during this 5th term of Parliament. The World Bank also made observation concerning the impediments of strike action when it stated that service delivery protests suggest that parts of the population have become disillusioned with the pace of reform. It further pronounced that the wildcat strike in the mining, energy, transport, and farming sectors have put into question labor and business relations in the country. It then recommended that the state would need to improve its service delivery efficiency by enhancing its capabilities and strengthening the skills profile of public servants. It is on this basis of our character and reputation as a nation that we are able to draw investment. It is on the backdrop of stability and growth that our nation stands to thrive. It is on this basis of economic growth that we are enabled to widen the scope for more of our people to benefit. We therefore need to deal effectively with service delivery and labor grievances, as failure to do so will taint the good reputation we've worked so hard to attain since the advent of democracy in 1994. The onus is therefore upon the House to provide the leadership impetus that would ensure we employ the right people with the correct set of skills and qualifications in all public service appointments for the benefit of our people. This will go a long way in rebuilding trust with our people, particularly with regard to service delivery. The rot of corruption is also a major impediment to the stability and growth of in our country. Corruption is one of the foremost triggers of service delivery strikes in South Africa. It is a gross indictment to the dignity of our people that resources that are meant to enhance the quality of life of our people are redirected into the hands of criminals. This condition is compounded by the fact that service delivery strikes tend to be violent in nature, leading to the damage of civilian and government properties. The ANC has posited a decisive stance in dealing with corruption at the 2012 Mangaung Conference. Resolution adopted in this regard stipulated the following, and I quote, "As the leaders of society, ANC members in every sphere and corner of this country need to be champions in the anti-corruption campaigns. The ANC should take tougher actions against corruption. Systems to detect and act against corruption should be strengthened. There should be greater cooperation across the spheres of government in dealing with corruption," close quote. This is a clear call by the ANC that all our people should stand firmly united against the deplorable effects of corruption. The 20 years of democracy assuredly offers an opportunity for all of us to move in a concerted manner in order to eradicate corruption and its retrogressive effects in South Africa. Honorable Chairperson, I want to conclude by positing the fact that stability on the African continent also contributes to the overall stability of our nation. According to an analysis by the 247 Wall Street in 2011, world peace improved for the first time in 3 years. Incidents of terrorism fell and the global economic downturn decreased violence by reducing the amount countries spend on military budgets. However, while many parts of the world improved, others got worse as a result of rising commodity costs, increased protest, and internal conflicts. 247 Wall Street identified the Central African Republic as the least peaceful country on the African continent. This situation is exacerbated by an easy access to small arms and high level of organized internal conflict. The CAR forces, which is the country's national military, has been relatively ineffective in protecting citizens from rebel groups' attacks and has contributed to human rights violations. South Africa plays a very proactive role in ensuring that peace and stability in other African countries, We are driven to intervene in these countries in order to ensure that the dream of an African Renaissance is achieved. Honorable Chairperson, I want to conclude my address by articulating my support and endorsement of this budget. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next speaker is the Honorable Gumede.
Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Minister, Honorable Deputy Minister, honorable members, esteemed ladies and gentlemen, I greet you all good morning. Our country, before I get to my speech, I've seen Inkosi Umahlobo, ngiyabingelela baba. Bengingakwazi kahle kodwa ke mhlambe sengiyakwazi manje. Ngiyabonga baba. Our country, South Africa, is beautiful. And our country, South Africa, is great. We have therefore seen many greats touch the soil of South Africa because it is a great country. It has been the leader of Cuba. It could have been the leader of the USA. It could be Lionel Messi. It could be many others. They have wished to come to South Africa to visit South Africa. South Africa is diverse, and in its diversity, it has a number of colorful cultures, a number of tasty dishes. You go to Durban, you get its hot, spicy curry. You go to the Indian Ocean, to its wonderful warm beaches. You go inland. You get braai vleis, you get pap, you get vleis, you get the warmth of the climate up there. You go to the east, you get the umngqusho and indigenous stew. And you see the whales, you see the white shark, you see the lion, and you enjoy the beauty of our wonderful land, South Africa. You go west and to the tip of Africa, and that is Cape Town, and you get the popoti, you get snookvis, you get the white shark, you see the whales, you see the beauty of South Africa, our wonderful country. Wonderful as it is, it needs to be safe, it needs to be secure for us to enjoy the wonders of our beautiful country, South Africa. But few people ask, who is behind this safety? Who is behind this security which we continue to enjoy? We know that the USA has had some instances of terrorism. We know it has happened in Nigeria. It has happened in Kenya. It has happened in Libya. It has happened in Russia with the Black Widow. I think that was in Russia where there was this Black Widow amongst the terrorists that terrorized people in a theater. But really, we get instances that terrify us here in South Africa. Rarely we have instances of terrorism, except for perhaps where we got attempted terrorism during the days of Pagad. And we are happy to say that Pagad leaders are inside right now as we speak. But that does not mean that we do not have to be vigilant. And for all the safety and for all the security, we thank SSA, the State Security Agent, among others, that are responsible for our safety. Terrorism destroys the economy wherever it is experienced, particularly in small economies. And that means it destroys jobs, it destroys economic growth, it destroys tourism, and all these negatively impact on economic activity that allows us to collect tax, to pay our grants, that allows us to get tax to build our roads, that allows us to have tax to deliver water to our households, that allows tax to get our houses with electricity and with lights in winter, in summer, and whenever. In South Africa, besides our security officials in blue and our defense force, we know that there are a number of unsung heroes, our patriotic and passionate cadres that are out there in the state security agent, and these underpin this security we can continue to enjoy. They are a major pillar, they are a major foundation in this security because they provide early warning systems even before some of these ugly instances occur. They identify and guide us all, particularly the stakeholders in security, as to how to go about what the nature of threats are and where the threats are. And in that way, we find ourselves relatively safe in South Africa as I talk to you. But that does not mean that we've got to reduce our vigilance as a country. But besides terrorism, they also help us to prevent illicit trade, illicit money, mining that robs our fiscus of an estimated 50 billion rands. Our motherland cannot be allowed to bleed like that. We cannot afford to bleed the fiscus more than 50 billion rands given the poverty we experience, given the unemployment we have, given a number of problems we have as a society. As the minister has mentioned, the State Security Agency assists us in securing very big events. We have had one of the greatest FIFA World Cup events in 2010. We have big rugby events that happen in South Africa. We have big global summits, we have big festivals, and we have the Comrades Marathon that attracts thousands, hundreds of thousands of people into our shores. And almost all these go on until the end, incident-free. That is not happening by chance. There are men and women out there, looking at threats, looking at dangers, looking at people, looking at profiles of people that may endanger us in going and in performing those events. These events are very, very important because they add tremendously to event tourism, and event tourism contributes to the growth of tourism. And tourism is one of the priority sectors that the President has talked about in the growth of our economy.
Honourable Member, your time is expired.
Oh.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Ngwabe.
Thank you, Chairperson. Ngwabe is my surname. Thank you. Honourable Minister, Baba Mahlobo, Deputy Minister, distinguished guests, honourable members. South Africa has quickly emerged as one of the most attractive countries in tourism in the world. Every year on festive seasons, we host a number of foreign visitors who choose to spend their holidays in this beautiful country of ours. This country continues to host international gatherings, both government-related or sport-related gatherings. Therefore, it is crucial to note that it is not everyone who will come into this country with good intentions. That is why we need a well-funded state security department, because the security of our country and its citizens is something we cannot afford to compromise as the government. It is for this reason, Chairperson, that the National Freedom Party supports this proposed budget of the State Security Department. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Schmidt.
Honourable Chairperson, oversight or scrutiny of the security sector cannot remain the preserve of the government without inviting potential abuse. It is crucial within the system of democratic accountability that mechanisms include both procedures and institutions, as well as a political culture that fosters transparency, openness, and an atmosphere that stimulates parliamentarians and other actors to watch the steps of government closely and to check the intelligence services critically. Budget control is at the heart of such parliamentary control. Intelligence services are financed with taxpayers' money, and thus it is crucial that there is thorough and in-depth scrutiny of the budget of the intelligence services by the Parliamentary Oversight Committee. In addition, in a true, open, and transparent democracy, scrutiny by a closed committee of Parliament must be coupled with open and transparent annual reporting and financial statements by the department to allow for some level of public scrutiny. However, the current system of budget oversight in this Parliament does not follow international best practice and is not aligned with the constitutional principles of transparency and accountability. Currently, the Department of State Security, unlike other government departments, does not submit annual reports to Parliament, nor does it provide the public with any level of detail on its financial statements. Rather, the budget vote of state security is included in the budget vote of National Treasury, and the public are privy to only one line item, the total budget for the department for any given year. Even the JSCI, which has security vetting to allow the members to see classified information, is only allowed to examine the first level of the state security budget, the administrative level. Beyond this, the next level of sensitive budget information is only examined by the Auditor General and the Inspector General, and the final, highest level of budgetary information is examined by the Inspector General alone. This means that a large proportion of taxpayers' money is subject to absolutely zero parliamentary oversight. We cannot accept that such a large proportion
Honourable Chairperson, is the Speaker prepared to take a question? It's a simple question.
If I have time, I will gladly do so at the end of my speech. Thank you.
Proceed, Honourable Member.
Thank you. We cannot accept that such a large portion of taxpayers' money can be subject to such minimal parliamentary oversight in a constitutional democracy. Since 1994, the intelligence services have been embroiled in numerous scandals. But most recently, former and current state security agency spies were deployed to the Thule House to screen prospective members of parliament. The phones of SABC journalists were tapped, and the state security agency was used to investigate the offshore accounts of the Honourable Malusi Gigaba. All three incidents are in violation of aspects of the Constitution. Thus, it is crucial that there is stricter and more thorough examination and control over the activities and budget of our intelligence services by Parliament. The Matthews Commission report, which was tasked with reviewing the intelligence services after numerous scandals, recommended in 2008 that the Department of State Security should have its own separate budget vote, and that annual reports and financial statements of the services should be presented to Parliament as public documents, with the exclusion of information that would endanger security or compromise intelligence operations, methods or sources. Unfortunately, this report was never tabled by Parliament, and most of its recommendations were never implemented. As a result, our intelligence services continue to operate outside constitutionally mandated oversight controls, and this continue to misuse state funds to further political objectives. Such proposals are in line with international best practice, whereby the mandates of parliamentary intelligence oversight committees include budgeting and accounting. One of the key aspects of international best practice for high-quality oversight of budgets is the principle of comprehensiveness. Parliamentary oversight of the security sector has to be all-inclusive and complete. No expenditure should go unaccounted for. The existence of secret budgets, which are inaccessible to the members of the Parliamentary Oversight Committee, runs counter to this principle. Parliamentary Oversight Committees should have full access to all classified information and to every single aspect of the budget to ensure that taxpayers' money is properly overseen.
On the point of order, Chairperson. Chairperson, is it correct for the member to mislead the House by saying that the department sent its officials to come and do vetting in the ANC? I ask you to look into that matter.
Order, honourable members. Honourable members, there are other members of the ANC that will respond in the minister himself. It's a matter of debate. Unfortunately, from where I'm sitting, I don't know the operations of the intelligence services, and I will request that the honourable member continue.
Chairperson, on a point of order, I wonder if you could please rule as to comments being made in the public gallery, especially towards members sitting on this side of the House. I have alerted you to the fact that they are speaking to us directly, and I'd like you to please rule as to whether or not they can converse with members of this House.
Now, members in the public gallery are not to participate in any proceedings of the House and are here to observe. So we request anyone who has made a comment to desist from doing so. You may continue, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. I understand that all the issues I referred to were in the public domain and the media, and it's not an issue of speculation. Thank you. The normal principles of good governance, which govern other activities of government, should also apply to the intelligence services. Exceptions in terms of secrecy should be legally limited. Importantly, Parliament's oversight of the intelligence budget should be such that intelligence agencies should only use funds for activities if those funds were specifically arranged and budgeted for. This is vastly different from this Parliament, where no aspect of the actual budget of the intelligence services can be debated in the House, and thus there is an entire lack of public scrutiny and accountability. Our intelligence services can no longer continue to manage their budgets outside of proper democratic parliamentary controls. 20 years into democracy, it is high time for the intelligence services to be reined in. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I've been alerted that the Honourable Olomisa was busy in another debate. He is here now, so I'll give him the opportunity to address the House. I invite you to the podium, Honourable Member.
Thank you. Chairperson, Honourable Minister and Deputy Minister, and Honourable Members. The UDM supports budget vote number 10. As members of the Joint Standing Committee on State Security, we should appreciate the seriousness of the task placed on our shoulders on behalf of the citizens of our country. We must always strive to place safety of South Africa and its people first. In doing so, this will need to provide correct and accurate advice to the state and adopt a non-partisan approach in the execution of this noble task without compromising the principle of oversight role. We are tasked to carry out this oversight-sensitive work at a time when the world seems to be gravitating towards untenable crisis. One is reminded of the economic meltdown, terrorism, drug trafficking, human trafficking, barbarism towards humanity, and many others. The great challenge to which we must all commit is the safety of all inhabitants of our land, South Africa, at all times. In order to achieve this, the state security machinery must at all times work closely with the communities it serves. South African leadership must deal decisively with the growing culture of anger, which sometimes destroys the very gains of our democracy, including destruction of state properties. Failure to immediately put an end to this will increase our economic fortunes as potential investors would consider elsewhere for investment. However, we would have failed if we were not to attend to the causal factors behind this anger. Issues like corruption, skewed distribution of resources, increasing arrogance of power. Finally, the rich resources of South Africa are attractive to the international community. Yet this is not for the beneficiation of the primary owners, and it compromises the security of this country. Why would a person travel thousands of miles from a foreign country into our country to poach our rhino in a protected park? The only logic explanation is the rooted corruption within our systems, lack of patriotism and culture of ownership. The Joint Standing Committee on State Security should at all times strive to provide genuine advice to those in the driving seat of the policies of this country. The UDM is of the opinion that the conclusion of the South African debate on national interest can no longer be delayed, as such will firm our policy formulation and positions, especially on foreign relations and internal security. Lo mcimbi ke chairperson sibachapha kuwo. Asiko clear kakuhle. And ka unyanzeleka nisiguide kuba sinento sike sibe ne excitement ke ixesha. Nisixelele uba lento ifamba yenziwe kanjani kodwa siza contribute. Sizawufuna inyani apho sifuna khona kwi bosses ezirun intelligence. Then once siyazi baqhubeka ntoni, then we can give you a genuine advice. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable J.J. Skosana.
Honorable Chairperson, Minister for State Security, Honorable Mahlobo, and Deputy Minister for State Security, Honorable Mulikane, Chairperson of the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence, Honorable members, Deputy Ministers present here, and Ministers, Director General of the State Security Agency, members of the intelligence community, veterans of intelligence services, distinguished guests, fellow South Africans. Several days ago, on the 18th of July 2014, the world joined us in celebrating the unforgettable legacy of the founding father of democratic nation, the late Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. His contribution, together with that of other liberation heroes, has provided us with a firm foundation from which we continue to build upon in order to ensure all South Africans reap the fruits of the liberation of this, our beloved country. The gains that have been achieved under the leadership of the ANC, ANC-led government over the last 20 years bear testimony to the undeniable fact that indeed South Africa has a good story to tell. Indeed, Chairperson, South Africans have spoken and have once again, through democratic processes, shown confidence in the ability of the African National Congress to move this nation forward. Chairperson, as I engage in this debate on the occasion of the budget vote of the state security, I do so mindful of the legacy bequeathed upon us by the late Nelson Mandela, as well as the immense confidence shown in the ANC by the people of South Africa at the 5th general elections in May 2014. Our people can rest assured that we will not renege on our commitments as outlined in the manifesto of the ANC. Chairperson, from the onset, I would like to take this opportunity to boldly state that the ANC supports this budget vote because we are certain that the work undertaken by state security is crucial and cuts across all sectors, government departments, as well as state entities, and will contribute to the achievement of government's priorities in the 5-year period. In line with this, and as stated by the Honorable Minister Mahlobo in his delivery of the budget vote, I quote, "The maintenance of national security, synonymous with the creation of conditions that are conducive to democracy, economic development, prosperity, and the well-being of the people," close quote. Following the aforementioned, I would like to lend myself to concentrating my engagement and intervention on the issues of corruption, crime, as well as the utilization of the intelligence veterans. Chairperson, the scourge of corruption must be eradicated and crime must be dealt with a severe blow. As reflected in our manifesto, we are committed to ensuring corruption-free society, as well as a society where our people are free, safe. In respect of these two challenges, the National Development Plan envisages a society where by the year 2030, people living in South Africa will feel safe at home, at school, and at work, and they will enjoy community life free of fear. In respect of corruption, Honorable Chairperson, the NDP further states that the 2030, the anti-corruption agencies will have adequate resources and be properly capacitated, and corruption will be radically reduced. This unwavering commitment to tackling these challenges has been reiterated by the Honorable President Jacob Zuma in his latest State of the Nation addresses delivered in February and June of the current year. Mhlonishwa, Ngqongqoshe, abantu abalise ukulelesa, ukweba nokukhwabanisa kuhulumende ophakathi wemfunda nowemakhaya. Abaragela phambili nobulelesi nokweba ababotshwe bafake emajele. Chairperson, as the ANC, we've taken note and welcome the commitments and initiatives that have been outlined in the budget vote by the Honorable Minister and Deputy Minister of State Security as it pertains to crime and corruption. We further note that the fight against crime and corruption is one which requires a multifaceted approach and a multiplicity of role players. Therefore, as a member of the Justice, Crime Prevention and Security cluster, we know the role that is played by the state security in this regard. As the ANC, we are also encouraged by the statement made by the Honorable Minister, I quote, "In protecting our democracy, corruption must be tackled head-on," close quote. The Honorable Minister Mahlobo also states that the JCPS cluster is leading by example by setting targets that need to be achieved in the shortest possible time. As the ANC, we are encouraged that state security has fully taken on board the relevant goals as set out in the NDP, fully taken on board the relevant provisions of the manifesto of the ANC, which we have been democratically mandated to implement, and heeded the call and marching orders by the Honorable President Zuma to escalate efforts to fight crime and corruption. Chairperson, we wish to further support the following elements, amongst others, of the budget vote for state security as it relates to their mandate to root out corruption. The implementation of the National Crime Prevention Strategy across all spheres of government with priority focus on the public and private sector. This would indeed assist preventing crime within sectors in our country. The establishment through the JCPS cluster of a resilient system to coordinate all anti-corruption responsibilities and structures accountable to the newly established interministerial committee, which has been mandated to deal decisively with corruption in the public sector. The contribution to improving perceptions of South Africa insofar as it relates to the country's international standing in relation to corruption by executing multilateral commitments. Supporting the Presidential Infrastructure Coordinating Committee and the Office of the Chief Procurement Officer to safeguard the integrity of the procurement processes. Supporting the Anti-Corruption Task Team and all its components, departments, and institutions to operationalize the multidisciplinary approach and to achieve the targets set for the conviction of corrupt individuals and entities, combating of money laundering, and the recovery of the proceeds of corrupt activities in the public and private sectors, and supporting the Department of Public Service and Administration, in particular the Office of Standards and Compliance and the National Disciplinary Unit at national, provincial, and local level to ensure integrity management in the public sector. Chairperson, the ANC has committed itself to stepping up the fight against crime in all its manifestations. We therefore take note of the issues related to organized crime that have been put forth. We stand support of the state security together with the JCPS cluster in advancing the gains that have been registered thus far in terms of making further inroads in this area. Furthermore, as stated by the Honorable Minister, The drafting of national strategy on the illicit economy will indeed go a long way in providing policy proposals to address this challenge. Chairperson, South Africa is indeed nation at work. The ANC is pleased that the State Security Agency has heeded the call of government to utilize veterans to reinforce the human resource capacity of government departments and structures. The ANC gladly takes note that the Civilian Intelligence Veterans Association has been established and an interim National Executive Committee has been appointed. These veterans bring along a wealth of experience, knowledge, expertise, and passion. As such, the ANC welcomes these developments and supports the work of the SSA in this regard. Chairperson, it is my firm belief and that of the ANC that the budget vote presented today is unambiguous about the role and responsibilities that the state security will carry out in terms of crime and corruption. The budget vote that has been presented is well aligned to outcome number 3 of government's delivery agreement that seeks to ensure that South Africans are and feel safe. The African National Congress therefore supports this budget vote and has full confidence that state security will contribute to the bigger responsibility of ensuring that this 5th administration delivers on its priority areas. Before I conclude, Chairperson, let me remind the members of DA that this committee is obliged by the Constitution, Section 199, Paragraph 8, on its oversight. Therefore, we'll do an oversight. The transparency that they are talking about, I don't think it's a transparency for the public. It's a transparency for the committee and the department. And also the issue of Luthuli. Luthuli is our house, it's not your house. Leave our Luthuli alone. If you have got an issue with Luthuli, join us and come and see Luthuli. Luthuli is not using state security to protect its institutions. I thank you very much, Chairperson, for giving me.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I now call upon the Honourable Minister of State Security to respond to the debate.
Honourable Chair and members, on behalf of the department, I want to take this opportunity to thank all political parties for their input, your cooperation in making the process to sit here possible. I agree with Honourable Member Utatu Olomisa, this is a serious business. And those who are bestowed this opportunity to serve here must avoid to be partisan. Let's not to start to look away and say things that are not upholding the Constitution and our laws. This work we do is in the Constitution. There are 3 pieces of legislation that are already there, that we are reviewing, trying to bring these issues together. Don't look away, Mr. Skimit, about these issues. There is an intelligence general that actually look at these issues. They do investigate matters, and we do take them serious. Therefore, there is no issue that there is no accountability and oversight. The Auditor General established by our own Constitution, they do the work to look at our books. Our annual report, currently the teams are busy, is being submitted to yourselves. We will find time to engage with these issues. But in terms of the legislation we've passed, for the first time, we have an intelligence architecture and a state security that is for all South Africans, not for other things we don't know. We'll find time to create an appreciation of our work, because of the appreciation is not the same. We don't look only on threats, we also look at opportunities. The appreciation of intelligence is about securing our country. Securing our country in totality. Let's find time to engage. What does it mean? Securing her integrity is also about securing our people. Our people, they sleep well, unlike in other countries. There are men and women there that have worked well over the last 20 years. they continue to do so to allow you to do your socio-economic activities and enjoy all the rights in the Constitution because of that, those men and women. And we must be grateful. We are the ones that have admitted that there have been challenges, and these challenges will confront them head on. But more importantly, we'll also protect our infrastructure and our resources. That's what state security means. That's why our president no longer calls us intelligence, because people think we're listening to people. Well, don't do wrong things. If you have no wrong things to sabotage your own country, you love your country and its people, you should have no worries about the work we do, because we will protect the country from scrupulous elements. We are going to ensure that these agents, because of the changes in the global environment, we become more effective. We are going to become robust, because the world is very robust. We are going to deal with all the evolving nature of threats, both in the country and global, because there are countries that they are not at peace, they are at war with themselves. And our duty is to secure our country. We will ensure that there is a better coordination of our work. We will exchange information. We are going to promote innovation, research, and development, because our technological capability and the professionalization of the service will be very key. We will do this thing not because we like it. It is our constitutional imperative, because the work we do has a lot of complexities in terms of the new threats and the number of issues that yourselves as members, we have alluded to, that are occupying the globe and our national security.
Honourable Minister, your time is now expired.
Lastly, Chair, we wanted to say we wanted to make state security everybody's business. We are going to go out to all South Africans, explain ourselves, be able to say how do they join hands, because we believe every South African naye uyipoise. Ngiyabonga.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Members are reminded that the debate on the Presidency's budget vote will take place at 2 p.m. in the National Assembly Chamber. That concludes the debate and the business of this extended public committee. The committee will now rise.